So, so we're in the middle of, well, probably a bit more in the middle of actually this theme we're exploring, which is kindness, burning, blazing, shining forth. I don't know if I've got those the right way around, but anyway, it's those. We're particularly, what was that? You're heckling me. It's wrong, okay. Sorry. Anyway, kindness, it's great and it burns and stuff. Yeah, we're particularly exploring this book by Sangha, Living with Kindness, so we're drawing inspiration from it. And just to say, this is my favorite Dharma book. I'm so excited that we're doing this as a theme. It's absolutely incredible. If you don't have a copy, get one or borrow one from the library. I'd really recommend it. And yeah, that book and this theme, we're kind of drawing out themes, particularly from the Karaniya Metta Sutta, but also we're following what's called the system of practice, the 5 aspects of Dharma life. Which can sound a bit technical, but they're basically universal principles about how human beings grow, and not just grow, but kind of totally transform. So just a little, very brief recap on the journey we've been so far. And yeah, we've been looking at this system of practice, particularly through the lens of metta, and exploring loving kindness, and how loving kindness is itself a complete path to awakening. It's inseparable from it and is in itself a path, as the Karaniya Metta Sutta shows us. So it starts with integration, becoming a complete, like, whole integrated human being, so that we're all parts of us are on board. That includes all these places that perhaps we're a bit more shadowy, that we're not so aware of. It all comes on board, so it's all kind of a whole person. And then comes positive emotion, which is developing this warm, expansive heart, contentment, gratitude, goodwill. And together, these kind of constitute becoming a healthy, happy human, or Triple H, if you like. After that, we had Pawanita's talk last week, looking at spiritual death, which is quite extreme language because it is quite extreme in a way. What's called for at this stage. We sometimes speak of it as insight, but yes, kind of letting go completely of our usual mode of being, our usual forms of identity, letting go of the kind of the fixed and separate, the delusion of a fixed and separate self, so that something much more beautiful can open up. And what opens up is what we call spiritual rebirth. So the metaphor of death and rebirth. If we can let go fully to the way things really are, we are, as it were, reborn spiritually. And this is more than just change. This is both together. This is total transformation. Total transformation. It's not just a bit of becoming a bit kinder. At this stage, we're talking about kindness, loving kindness, unbounded, completely unbounded, free of anything that might hold it back. Particularly, this free of the way we fix ourselves and try and fix, I'm here, you're there. That can all be freed up so that loving kindness can flow unlimitedly. Unlimitedly? You know what I mean? Yeah, good. But tonight, so we're looking at spiritual rebirth in particular tonight, and the question here really is, what would it look like, or what would it be like to be in the presence of somebody that fully embodies loving kindness? What would it be like to be in their presence? Or what is it we're moving towards? Who is it we're moving towards? Who could we become? And getting a really vivid sense of this. So it's about really actively bringing to mind enlightenment, loving kindness embodied, what it might look like, and then coming into relationship with that so it can affect us and transform our lives, and so we can become more like them. So tonight, this will be it's going to be the realm of the imagination. So, we've heard probably lots who can explore metta through ideas and concepts, but tonight we're going to be there will be some of that, but we're mainly going to be contemplating being in the presence of beings who fully embody metta. And as Dharma practitioners, it's centrally important that we do this in one way or another. And there's different ways we can do this, but it's really important, and I'll say more about that later. So we're going to begin by going right back to the source, right back to the Buddha, the original embodiment of immeasurable loving kindness and compassion, and the most fundamentally important embodiment of metta for us. for us is practicing Buddhism. So if you read the Pali texts, so these are the texts that kind of contain the stories and scriptures of the Buddha, you may find, some of us may find, well, we probably all will find, it's written in a very particular way, and it can seem a bit dry, a bit I can't get my word, repetitious. There's a lot of repetition, a lot of lists, a lot of negatively inclined language, like non-craving, non-hatred, not this, not that. And if we're not careful, we might get the impression, if we don't quite use our imagination, that the Buddha was this kind of just cool dispenser of wisdom, just sort of. You may think, what, really? I mean, I could fall into this sometimes. I think maybe it's something that some of us in the West with our kind of very rational minds can be inclined towards. This kind of cool dispenser of wisdom, telling people the way things are, and that's it. But this is wrong. That is not what the Buddha was like. I wasn't there, but I know it's not what the Buddha was like. We mustn't let the medium distort the message. So, and arguably, the main message of the Buddhist scriptures, of those early Buddhist scriptures, the main message is the Buddha himself. So the teachings, the Eightfold Path, the Threefold Way, the Fivefold this, and, all those, they're really important. But in a sense, the main teaching is the Buddha himself, who he was, how he was, and what he did. And that reveals something of the true essence of why it is we're doing this, why we're at this Buddhist center tonight. I think far more profoundly than ideas and concepts can do. So if we really use our imagination when reading the scriptures or hearing stories about the Buddha, we can, I think, you don't have to use it too much, but we can really start to get a sense of the enormity and the depth of his love and compassion. So we're going to see if we can get a sense of that right now. So this talk's going to be a bit different. It's going to be a bit participatory. So we're going to go on a little bit of a journey, okay, to India 2,500 years ago. So my invitation is to you. So it's going to be a bit of an imaginative journey. Don't worry if you don't see anything. Just listen to the words and see if you can get a felt sense of what that might mean. So I invite you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable to do so. It won't be long, so you don't need to get into meditation posture or anything. And then you find yourself, miraculously, in ancient India, 2,500 years ago. The sun is hot. The sky is perfectly blue. And you're sat in a great assembly of people who've all gathered to get a glimpse of a great spiritual teacher who people are saying is enlightened, fully and completely awake. This is what you have heard. And looking ahead to the front of the assembly, in the distance, you see him right there, sitting in deep contemplation, radiating peace, seeming to radiate light, golden light. And this great being, in his meditation, is pervading the whole assembly with a mind of immeasurable loving kindness. He feels and trembles for each one of us. He feels and trembles for you. Then he opens his eyes, and as far as you can tell, he seems to be looking right at you. You feel completely and deeply seen. You somehow know in your heart that this great being can see precisely what it is within you that holds you back from becoming free, and that he wants nothing more than to help you get there. He wants nothing more than to help you become free. And he smiles. Okay, in your own way, returning to Sheffield into 2024. So this is the Buddha. The Buddha expressed his metta particularly by dedicating himself to liberating beings. He didn't just go around being friendly and warm, as great as that is, but his deep wish was to liberate beings, to help each person become free. And this was his compassion. Yeah, this was his compassion, his wish to free beings, free from all suffering and all restriction. And this compassion was not just part of him, it was who he was. It's the core essence of his being, just as it's the core essence of our being, if only we could remove the obstacles, as it were. So yes, the very nature of the Buddha and of any enlightened being is this unstoppable wish for all living beings to be free, to be happy in their heart of hearts, as we hear in the Karaniya Metta Sutta. So a bit more practically, so bringing the Buddha to mind in this way can be a really excellent preparation for meditation. We may have heard a bit of this from Vedanya earlier in the series, but particularly if you can get a real connecting with this sense of metta, this sense of, imagine what it'd be like to be with somebody who wants so much the best for you in its fullest sense. Being in contact with this, what we might say, unconditional love, this unconditional wish for our highest well-being, whether from the Buddha or otherwise. There are other ways of contacting that, but this is an absolutely excellent foundation for meditation, perhaps even sort of a core foundation for meditation. This healthy, happy sense of self that, in a sort of very basic sense, you might say is just, I'm good enough, I'm enough. And the Buddha knows that. And paradoxically, embracing that allows us to deeply transform and to grow and to become who we could become. So I'd really recommend, sitting with the Buddha while you meditate. Give it a go. So leaving the Buddha behind, well, kind of, actually, we're not leaving him behind. We're kind of, we're going somewhere else now. So over the centuries, as people contemplated the Buddha in their meditation, which is very important, seemingly ever since the Buddha died, or even while he was alive, people would bring the Buddha to mind so they could really directly, immediately contact his qualities. Over the years people did this, the Buddha would start to take on different forms in their illumined imagination, which is completely natural because the physical form of the Buddha isn't the Buddha, if that makes sense. If we don't know what the Buddha looked like, he wouldn't have looked like that. And yet, gold communicates something of who the Buddha actually was, more than just a picture of a human being. He was a human being, but he was more than that as well. Even in the Buddha's day, people describe him as radiating golden light and having golden skin. And maybe that he literally was, I don't know, but very likely, well, at the very least, that's how people did see him, because that was actually seeing the true nature of the Buddha. We might say, that sort of we only can really ever meet the Buddha truly in an archetypal way, in the sense of an image, something that communicates who the Buddha really was, or a felt sense of that. So now we're going to meet another form of the Buddha, what we sometimes call archetypal figure, who particularly expresses and embodies loving kindness and compassion. So this is the red Buddha, Amitabha. And again, rather than just describe him, we're going to meet him. So we're going to go on another little journey. This one's a bit more miraculous, we might say. So I again invite you to close your eyes if you wish. And you find yourself sitting amazingly, on the surface of a great ocean. The water is peaceful yet deep, and the sun is setting in the horizon, glowing soft yet a powerful red. And in front of you, sitting on a great red lotus flower, is the Buddha, Amitabha. The colour of his body is the most rich and beautiful red you've ever seen, and he wears gold and red robes. His left hand rests in his lap, while his right hand holds up a shining red lotus flower. He holds it as if he's inviting you to reach out and take it. He's smiling, eyes half open, gazing towards you with a love and compassion that melts all tension and melts all fear. You feel that all is well, deeply, deeply well. His red body is radiant with light, and this light you feel is warming and nourishing your whole being to its core. You feel he sees you exactly as you are, and sees exactly who you are and who you could become. He sees all of this and is so delighted. So again, in your own way, floating back to Sheffield, into the shrine room. So this is Amitabha, the red Buddha, whose name means infinite light. So I'm going to say a couple of things about Amitabha just to draw out something of his significance and symbolism, in particular in relation to our theme. So he is red, and red is the colour of love. It's the colour of love. It's also the colour of passion, of hot emotion, of fire, of bliss and ecstasy. And Sangha has something to say about this particular quality of metta in Living with Kindness. So this is what he says. He says, although when it is fully developed, metta is a feeling of harmony, both in oneself and with all beings, it also has a fiery, full-blooded, even ecstatic quality. Ecstasy literally means a sense of standing outside oneself, and this is how metta can feel. It is marked by such an intensity of positive emotion that, when purely felt, it can carry you outside of yourself. Metta is blissful, ecstatic, a naturally expansive desire to brighten the whole world, the whole universe, and universes beyond that. So yes, metta is red, it's passion, it's hot, it's bliss, and it's ecstasy. Even though, of course, we can't always feel it that way. Often we contact it in its kernel forms and in very kind of lower key forms, and that's really, really good. But it's in its full embodied form, as we see in Amitabha, it has this full-bodied, fiery, blissful, ecstatic quality. So Amitabha is also said to have the power to transform our, what we might call our neurotic sticky attachment, to transform this neurotic sticky attachment into metta. So he transforms it into loving kindness. This is said to be one of his kind of superpowers, as it were. And there's a name for what we call sticky attachment in Buddhism, which is Pema, P-E-M-A, Pema, which you might say is love with strings attached. So family is an example that we might have. You know, we say, oh, I love my mum, I love my kids, And that can be that can be unconditional, but usually there's some sense of expectation. We expect something, don't we, from our family because they love us or we love them. And romantic relationships are probably the most kind of the biggest, most obvious example here of kind of love where we expect something. You know, it's not purely unconditional. We do expect something from the other person, and this isn't bad. Pema is not bad. It's natural. But it can become sour, when it's kind of thwarted, if that person we love doesn't kind of do what we want from them. So it's kind of we want something from the other person. So Amitabha doesn't say stop that, don't do that, but more says, okay, yes, that's natural. Let's take it further. What if instead of just sort of falling in love with one person and thinking they're amazing and they've got this and they've got that, and sort of kind of just as we do, if we're like really, really kind of drawn to someone or really interested or even in love with somebody, we can really magnify everything about them and think they're so wonderful, so this, that. So like that's good, that's not bad. But imagine if we could do that for all beings, Imagine if we could do that for all beings, if we could fall in love with everybody. And this is what Amitabha does. This is kind of one thing he represents. He loves everybody. He's fallen in love with everybody. He doesn't just wish us all well. He sees us exactly as we are, sees our qualities, and delights in them, takes incredible delight in all the particularity of each and every one of us. And this is an aspect of metta. This is an aspect of metta that this figure particularly embodies, what's sometimes called the discriminating wisdom, or related to what's called the discriminating wisdom of Amitabha. Wisdom and loving kindness, of course, as we hopefully know by now, are two sides of the same coin. They're not two separate things. So he sees the particularity of beings. And this includes the messy, dark stuff as well. It's been particularly important for me in my practice, a real working ground for me, is to be able to, how do I bring loving kindness to those aspects of myself that are painful, dark, difficult, even destructive, even harmful. It's natural, isn't it, when there's something painful within us or something that feels harmful, that we think, I don't want that. No, that's bad. That's not skillful. Get rid of that. Become better, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So it's been a big practice for me, something in the area of like how to hold these places, neither accepting nor rejecting, but holding them with an awareness, almost as if like a parent would hold a child, a child that's suffering, holding, feeling, I'm not trying to change you. You don't have to be this, you don't have to be that. I'm just going to hold you and be there for you and love you, be with and love with. And that's how change and transformation can actually happen, and integration. And this is something I feel Amitabha particularly embodies. This red Buddha sees all of us, including our dark bits, and says, yes, I will hold you and I will embrace you with that. But he does also see the positive, very much the positive in each and every one of us. And metta, metta in its fullness, is that mudita quality that we heard in a previous talk, rejoicing and delighting in the qualities of others, rejoicing in merits, that most wonderful practice that we do, that you can never do enough, really. And another practice we can take up, as well as sort of active rejoicing in merits, in this area of kind of Amitabha's discriminating wisdom, or wisdom of particularity, as it's sometimes called, is just really getting interested in people. I used to think that, interest is quite, you're either interested or you're not, Somebody walks in the room like, oh, I'm interested, or nah, I'm not interested. But actually interest is a choice. It can be a real choice. We can choose to get interested in people. Asking questions, just holding in our awareness, having that sense of here's a being I know nothing about, or like there's lots I don't know about. The more we do that, actually, the more interesting they become, because we're all fascinating, really, aren't we? We're all absolutely fascinating. And interest, I think, is a real basis of metta. It's a real basis to be able to have loving kindness, is to see the particularity in each and every one of us. So that's Amitabha. So this, as I said earlier, this is all in the domain of spiritual rebirth, this kind of fourth aspect of the spiritual life. So I thought I'd just, by making things a little bit practical, mention 3 things that we can do to practice this more explicitly. So firstly, build a shrine and look after it. So having a shrine is wonderful because you don't need to have any particular thoughts going on. You don't need to be in a particular mood. It doesn't even kind of matter, in a sense, how you are. You can, if you're building a shrine or tending to a shrine, that has an effect. It can go right in, creating something beautiful that's of reverence, that's expressing values symbolically. Putting flowers on, dusting, laying out a mat in front. There's like lots of very simple things, and it can. I'm often surprised at the effect that can have. I can think that's so simple. If there's something I'm trying to like figure out, if I'm struggling with something, my default is let's figure this out and work it out and think it through. Whereas there's been times where actually let's just pay homage to something beautiful physically, and that can have such a profound effect. So relating to that second way we can practice spiritual rebirth is engaging in ritual. So building a shrine is a form of ritual, but we can come to rituals at the Buddhist center, we can come to Padmasambhava Day, and learn to speak ritual, the language of ritual in our own lives. You might say, go out and go into nature and try and find something that seems to particularly express loving kindness. Take it back to your shrine and offer it, and see what effect that has. And thirdly, and a bit more explicitly, bringing to mind beings of metta in your meditation. So whether that's the Buddha, Amitabha, or other archetypal beings, or even friends, or even people people you look up to in the world, bringing them to mind in your meditation. So that can be Metta Bhavana, it could be mindfulness of breathing, but it's having a sense of being in the presence of somebody that is radiating loving kindness. I mentioned that earlier, being like a really great foundation for meditation. And it can become a meditation in its own right. So ordination, if you ever get ordained, if you find yourself getting ordained, which I'd recommend, it's really good. So like among other things, as part of the private ordination, you're initiated into a formal meditation practice on a particular Buddha or Bodhisattva that you feel you have a particular connection with. It's a very significant initiation. Other traditions sometimes speak of it as a kind of an empowerment. And from that moment on, if you, most people would then take up meditating on that figure daily, sort of with the intention of for the rest of your life, though these things are organic and they can shift and change. So then spiritual rebirth at ordination becomes of central and significant importance, becomes in a sense the main focus of meditation and of life, really embodying this sort of something of the beyond and something of loving kindness that's more than just developed self-development, if that makes sense. So this is my main meditation practice. Every morning I sit with the Bodhisattva Manjushri, opening up to his wisdom and his compassion and loving kindness, and sort of not really knowing what's happening, why, or even why I'm doing it, but really deeply knowing in myself that I definitely have to do this and I need to keep doing it, and this is so significant and meaningful. I could analyze it to pieces and then it'd be broken, I think. No, I'm just sitting with Manjushri and something amazing happens, and that's what I'm doing every day. It's not always amazing, but you know what I mean. It's kind of the overall processes are quite miraculous. But you don't need to wait to receive a formal meditation practice at ordination to start bringing these figures you're inspired by into your meditation, or even in your own time, perhaps making that. You could do the mindfulness of breathing with the Buddha, for example, and just really pay attention to the Buddha, see how that affects you. Something Jai Gupta says is there are no mind police, so you can do what you like in meditation, but do Metta Bhavana and mindfulness breathing, and you can do what you like. Yeah. So I want to finish by asking an important question, which arguably you might think I should have asked at the start, which is, why is it important to do this? Why is it important to connect with the Buddha or these archetypal beings, or embodiments of metta, to see metta lived out and real? Why isn't it enough just to do the Metta Bhavana, for example? Well, firstly, I should say, no, it is enough to do the Metta Bhavana. The Metta Bhavana, I'm saying, like, it is, it can be a complete path. It can be a complete path. And it is a complete path. But having this dimension of being aware of what it is we're moving towards in a form that's kind of, in some way or form embodied and, as it were, in a sense, outside of us. So firstly, why this is important, well, firstly, there's a pragmatic reason. And then secondly, I've got another reason, which I don't know what to call it, but we'll go there soon. Firstly, pragmatic. So it seems to just be like a fact that we need to make a strong connection with what it is we're moving towards to be able to open up to that. So if we're going to engage with spiritual death practice, to engage in, say, insight practice or whatever it might be, where we're really letting go of our identity, in a sense, or like a kind of ego clinging. To do that, we need to have a strong connection with what is we're moving towards, so we don't slip into or nihilism, like a kind of sense of breaking everything apart and kind of not really having much to sort of integrate around. Parts of ourselves may feel like we're kind of opening up into a nothingness, or we may say have some big experience, say some kind of insight experience, and then appropriate it and think, yes, I've got that now. I've got insight. I've seen this. I've seen the nature of reality, and it is good. And I will be different from now and forevermore. But it gets appropriated. It becomes about me, rather than actually we're closer to the truth. We're opening up to something that's kind of it is a mystery. It is a mystery, and it's beyond us. Yeah, it's not something that can be possessed. It's not something that can be owned. We speak about the Buddha attaining enlightenment, practicing and attaining enlightenment. That's a helpful metaphor, but it's not actually literally what's going on. There's something else going on. I don't know what it is, but it seems to be. But we can open up to that by opening up to this mystery that's represented by the stage of spiritual rebirth. But lastly, so why is it important to connect with these kind of archetypal figures, or the Buddha? So this one, I'm just going to say it, right? It's important because they're real. Yeah, they're real. No, I said it. I could qualify that now. We often do that, don't we? Like, but what do you mean by real? Da, 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 da. I'm not going to do that, right? I'm going to take a bit of a different tact. They're real. So Sangha in a seminar, Manjughosha seminar actually, Manjushri seminar, he says in that text, we might think, it's just subjective. There aren't really any Buddhas or Bodhisattvas. They just personify states of your own mind. That's what we might think. And he says, this is true in a way, but it's very dangerous to think of that prematurely. It's much better to think that there are Bodhisattvas actually out there who are thinking about you and wanting to help you. That, in a way, is not only more helpful, but is actually nearer to the truth. Nearer to the truth. So he's saying it's not literally true, but it's nearer to the truth. So as far as we're concerned, it's probably actually the truest perspective we might have. It's closer to reality to relate to, for example, Amitabha as, in some way or form, real. What do I mean by real? I'm not going to say. Save that for the groups. But yeah, it seems to be the nature of things that the deeper truths of life come to us in as it were, from a different, like a kind of like a different realm. I say, like, to this realm of sort of senses and lecterns and kick that over, but anyway, floor and all this stuff comes to us from a sort of another realm. We call it the archetypal realm. We could, but yeah, this, as it were, other realm operates through image, through archetype and symbol, not in measurements, not in ideas, not in so-called facts. And crucially, this realm is alive. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are alive. They're not just an aspect of our individual mind, and they're much less so a byproduct of the brain. And it's much bigger than me or you. So this realm, this archetypal realm, is much bigger than me or you. I'm saying this in a kind of as if I'm just saying it as if this is the way it is. You're free to challenge this, but I just want to do it. I just want to do it. Dharma Deepa, he's an order member at Padmaloka, just in the middle of a study group once, sort of came out with, and I don't know if this is word for word, but it really stuck with me. He said, we don't use archetypal figures to connect with reality. Reality uses archetypal figures to connect with us. So, yeah, I really believe, so like loving kindness, it's a very real and alive force in the universe, as it were. I need to say that a lot. So like metta is reality, metta is truth. And it, in a sense, it reaches out to us, it's bigger than us, it's bigger than just our small mind. It reaches out to us in the form of these archetypal beings, in the form of the Buddha. The Buddha that we can even contact now through our imagination. And this all may sound, terribly new age and a bit woo, but it seems to be true. Yeah, or at least, much closer to the truth than the alternatives, like materialistic science, it's all random, it's all innate matter, and so on. And the more, but just don't take my word for it. Keep practicing, see what you think. Yeah, see what you think. This is me speaking from my experience and what I believe to be true. But yeah, the more I practice, the more I have faith that metta, loving kindness, really is inseparable from the nature of things. It's part and parcel of the universe, of you and of me and of everything. But because in a way, there's no such thing as metta, there's only metta, beings with metta, in a sense, beings who embody and express metta, this kind of metta that I'm saying is sort of somehow part of the nature of the universe. Again, might sound a bit woo, but I don't know how else to put it. It cannot but present itself in embodied form because there isn't metta, there's only beings with metta. Forms like the Buddha or Amitabha, or even just acts of loving kindness that we just see in the world around us. That's a way in as well. We can see the acts, the way that other people are living their lives and experience metta in that way. And we can experience it in each other as well. It's there and it's in each and every one of us. So each of us houses infinite potential for loving kindness. It's waiting to be unleashed. Because our true nature, underneath all the layers, our true nature is Buddha nature, is Amitabha, infinite light. That is our true nature. So let's stop pretending that's not the case and just really embrace how miraculous we are. Yeah. That's me.